I feel like we were lied to a lot. The plan was to be an actress. That was my plan. And I dedicated my whole entire life to it. I even moved to LA. Listen, everything but acting happened in LA. Everything but acting. Eventually, God said no to my dreams, and that he had other plans, and that there was unfinished business back home. Fast forward, here I am, sharing my life with you, sharing myself with you, so that it would give you hope for your own journey. Hi, my name is Tiffany, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. I want to talk about something today that is kind of personal, but I know that there are so many people out there who can relate to this, and I just really feel like it will be of some sort of value to somebody out there. So let's talk about this messy situation with my student loans. Ugh. So I think it's my video prior to this one. I showed you guys my degree. It's the obnoxious one in the middle right there. I went to NYU and I studied drama. My major was drama. If I could go back in time, oh boy, if I could go back in time, I don't know. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to change anything. If I go back in time, I'm going to change anything, right? Because God works all things out for the good of those who love him and are called according to his will. So I'm not going to regret anything. But I will say that if I had to give a young person advice, I would say do not pursue a degree in acting, or be very careful about pursuing any degree in the arts, because I don't really think you need a degree in the arts for the purposes of like doing TV or becoming a recording artist or something like that, you know? So that's what I would say. And that's just my humble opinion from somebody who went to school for acting. So I went to NYU. And when I went there, I went to Tisch School of the Arts. I was in the drama program, and it was about $43,000 a year for undergrad. Okay. So I'm not talking about a graduate degree. I'm talking about undergrad. Hi, future me here. I was editing this video and there were a couple things that I neglected to mention that I really wish I had. And so before I run outside for some errands, I just want to get on here and share a couple thoughts with you really quickly. Okay. The first being that I just want to make it abundantly clear that I never, ever made this video to solicit any sort of sympathy or anything like that. My loans are my responsibility. And, I'm not on here to, be like, oh, woe is me. I just know that this is an issue. This is an issue in our country. And I'm not the only one with this burden. And there's so much confusion about how to navigate it. And so I just that is where my heart was, in making this video, for those who feel that sting, of not knowing what to do with their loans. And just in general, financially, I think that this could just be beneficial for anyone, to grab some nuggets, to grab a hold of whatever it is that is applicable to them in terms of just being smart about the financial decisions that we make, or is it even necessary, right, to take out loans for school? however it could be helpful, that is my heart behind this video. And it's not to solicit any sort of sympathy or anything like that. And that I want to piggyback off of that thought, which is that, I failed to mention that I think I have my notes here, that I think that, the higher education system in our country is flawed in the way that, it can be so expensive if you want to go to certain schools, right? And this idea that you have to, go to a school with a big name, with a big price tag in order to have a prestigious name, right, on your resume and get the right sort of networking. I think this is a flawed mentality. And so I don't think that a higher education should be that expensive. It's crazy. And especially if you're pursuing, something in the public sector, right? Like public service positions. If you're going to school to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, any of these things, a dentist, I think it's horrible that, sometimes these people come out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of loans, to serve us, right? Serve the people. And, something really needs to be done about that. And, in general, I think student loans, it's a whole scam. It's a whole scam. You come out of school with this huge burden and navigating that can be really hard when you're young and you just got out of school and you're jumping into the real world with already so much baggage and weight on your shoulders. That's a really tough pill to swallow. And it certainly was for me when I got out of school. The student loan industry is a scam. It really is. And so before you take out any loans for school, really think wisely about it. And, it's also a scam in the sense that, listen, this stuff gets sold from one bank to the next bank to the next bank. Mine, the big one that I am venting about in this video as it relates to what I'm dealing with now today, that specific big loan, it originally was held by Citibank. Then it got sold to another bank, and then it got sold again to Navient. I mean, the whole industry, it's such a scam. And you're kind of helpless, really just kind of getting blown, by the winds with whatever's going on, in government and policies and all of that. So, you feel really helpless. And the last thing that I want to say is that I always intended to pay off my student loans, okay? I worked so hard to pay off what I was able to pay off. And so I'm not asking for a handout or anything like that. But listen, they said they was gonna, you know what I'm saying, forgive. So I was like, hey, forgive these last dollars that I have hanging on my shoulders. You know what I'm saying? You could take it. But I always worked really hard and tried my best. And I was able to accomplish a lot and get a lot paid off. And I always thought that I was going to book a big show and be able to just wipe it all out. And that's not what happened. So anyways, I just really wanted to share those thoughts. And now you can go ahead and jump back into the video. Every school year, I would be in the bursar's office in tears because prior to the beginning of the school year, I would receive a bill that was astronomical. And I was, young, and I definitely didn't know how I was going to come up with, a couple grand to cover the rest of the semester. Now, I was fortunate enough that, my family, we were poor. I'm not going to put that on myself now, but, we didn't have a lot of money. We were on food stamps and welfare and all that stuff. And so I got a lot of financial aid, and I, had some grants there, need-based grants and all of that. And so there was a lot that was being covered, but there was also a lot that wasn't. And so for a young girl who didn't have parents that I can turn to say, hey, I need $10,000 to cover the rest of my semester. Those bills, they were very scary. And so I was always crying every school year, like, please help me, somebody. And the women in the bursar's office, there were some older women that were always so helpful. They knew how to work all the numbers, and they were like, okay, so you have your own apartment. Because I was also very independent growing up, and I didn't live on campus because that would have been like another $20,000 a year. So I had a little apartment, and I was being grown. I had a boyfriend and I was living with him, and we had our apartment. And you can, by the way, you can read about all of this in my memoir called Little Smiles. Yeah. And we had a little apartment. So they would be like, okay, so you're living on your own, so you pay rent, this, that. And they would work all the numbers out. And so they would try to find ways for me to get the numbers, working in my favor. And, I would have to take out student loans to cover chunks of money here and there. And, before I knew it, I was in my third semester of school. I had worked while being a full-time student. And it was a lot. It was very hard. And I just remember my last year of school, I said, I just want to be a student. I just want to know what it's like to just go to school. And so that meant that I took out like a big loan for that last year of school. And I budgeted it out like to the penny so that I could pay my rent and have grocery money and little spending money here and there and pay my bills. And I was just a student for that very last year of school. And it was my hair looks weird. And it was the most amazing year of school of those 4 years, because I could just be a student, and it was awesome. But with that being said, by the time I graduated and started getting my student loan bills in the mail, I was horrified. I came out of school with about $48,000 worth of student loans. And there were, multiple loans. Like, it wasn't just like one big loan, it was multiple loans. And I was just absolutely horrified. It was horrifying. It was like my heart was just like beating out of my chest, okay? And I just was like, what in the world? And at that time, I was getting to know the Lord. I had an incredible encounter with him, and he made himself known to me in a very real way. And so I was just having so much faith and trust in him. And I had received this prophetic word that there was this incredible financial blessing that was going to be coming to me. And I remember about exactly 6 months after I graduated from school, it was 4 months after I graduated from school, almost about the time that the student loans were all going to start going into repayment. There was one that had already started going into repayment, and the others would start about 6 months, I think, after graduation. And, something crazy happened. I actually booked a national commercial, and I made quite a bit of money from that commercial. Hey, of course, the cat wants to be chatty now. And I was able to pay off the smallest student loan, which I think was about like $5,000 or something like that. And I paid that off, and I was saved, and I was making, decent payments on the other loans and whatever. And, but life went on, and I strayed away from the Lord. I eventually broke up with that crappy boyfriend. Again, you can read all about that in the book. And I moved to LA so that I could pursue acting. And the student loans haunted me. They haunted me. When I was in LA, those student loans were like on my back. I mean, they just wouldn't go anywhere. I, was working my survival job so that my schedule could be open for auditions and this and that. So, you work jobs where you're not necessarily making, crazy money. the goal is to be able to audition. You want flexibility. You want your daytimes open and all this stuff. So I made a lot of sacrifices, and student loans would get deferred and go into forbearance. And, then I would try to make payments, and then I need a new payment plan. And it was just a mess. Okay. And eventually I ended up having to take out a loan because I was in a place where I was really lost, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing with my life, because acting was just a nightmare. And so I took out a little student loan, and I moved to Paris for a summer because I had gotten into a film studies program with Yale University in Paris. Okay, so I took out a student loan, and it was so worth it. That program was so worth it. But of course, it added to my debt. Fast forward, I eventually paid off more student loans. The years are going by. I'm struggling. I'm doing my thing. And at about 2022, when Biden takes office, he's like, I'm canceling student loans. And I was so geeked, because by that point I had these loans forever and a day. And I was just so tired of them just being on my back, breathing down my neck, and while not being a working actor. Okay. That was the whole point of going to NYU. And I was so happy that this man was gonna do that. This man and this woman, because Kamala was also, that's the platform that they ran on, right? So I thought, okay, well, if they're gonna do that, then that's great. Well, I got punked, because I found out that this last student loan that needed to be repaid, this last student loan, which was the big one, this loan was in a very precarious category. It was not eligible for the forgiveness. It was not eligible. This loan was a FFELP loan. And this FFELP loan was a loan that they had stopped processing this loan in the way that I had it a few years after me. So this loan was a loan that was regulated by the federal government, but it was not held by the federal government. It was held by a commercial bank, right? So I originally gotten it through Citibank. So Citibank was my loan processor, and they were the loan holder, but the terms of the loan were regulated by the federal government, if that made any sense. It wasn't owned by the federal government. It wasn't owned by the Department of Education. So there were certain rules that didn't apply to this loan whenever there were certain programs available. And this forgiveness being one of them. So a couple years after that I had gotten that loan, they then transitioned this type of loan to being held by the Department of Education. And so I was not eligible for any sort of like loan forgiveness or whatever. I was still on the income-driven repayment plan, which meant that like after 20 or 25 years, you would eventually be eligible for forgiveness, but it was only based on the times that you actually make payments. So they don't take into account, deferment and forbearance periods of time. And I just thought, man, like this really sucks. Like I'm going to be stuck with this loan my whole life. And some time went by, and when Biden was going to be running again, he eventually had to drop and say that he couldn't run, right? Whatever. We all know what happened. But they said that, my loan wasn't eligible. So they decided, okay, well, we'll do a one-time account adjustment for people like you. And so for people, because my type of loan, you can only get forgiveness if it was owned by the federal government. and mine wasn't. Mine was in a very sticky little weird category. So they said, if you consolidate your loan into a new loan that would then place your loan under the Department of Education. So it would be owned, I guess, by the federal government. And then we will do a one-time adjustment to your account, and we will take into account all the forbearance time, all the deferment time, and it will get you closer to forgiveness. And I thought, okay, but I was kind of scared because when I read like all the fine print and stuff, I was like, man, like they're going to take all the interest and everything is going to be capitalized, because it would take my principal balance, which that loan started, I think it was like 25,000, like the principal balance, the principal was 25,000. But over the years, it accumulated a couple thousands of dollars in interest. And so it would capitalize all that interest. It becomes part of the principal. And then when you get new interest, the interest is now going to be on this like new astronomical number. Okay, really quickly, just so you know, it wasn't only that you could potentially, you could potentially have all of this interest getting capitalized, but that your payment count would start all the way over from zero. Like all those years of payments don't count. Like you literally start from zero. And that was a terrifying thought. And that was in the fine print. But I thought, well, they're doing this adjustment, so why not? But I was like, okay, let me not stress about it, because it's going to get me closer to forgiveness. It'll be okay. So I did the whole shebang. I applied for this consolidation, went and selected the plan that they said to select, which was called the SAVE plan. And they were going to do a one-time account adjustment, and it would get me closer to forgiveness. So instead of disregarding all those times in forbearance and deferment, it would count all of that in. So I did it. And I saw one day that they adjusted the account, and it said that my expected forgiveness was going to be March of 2026. And I was so happy. And I was so relieved. And I said, oh my gosh, like I just can't wait. I just like want this to be done. And I was not expecting to cry or get emotional. I was so happy. Fast forward, the new administration comes in, and it's found that it's not what they did was not it was against the law, apparently. And so, the SAVE plan was something that was instituted under Biden-Harris, which I feel like we were lied to a lot with this whole student loan forgiveness situation. And it's now dead. Like it's dead. The SAVE plan has been completely killed. And there are a lot of us in limbo now about what's going to happen. Like, is that account adjustment still going to be recognized? Because then they put, like, the month after I saw that, maybe 2 months after, all of a sudden they put all of our accounts in forbearance. And it's been in forbearance for like a year now. And all that time, that year, does not count. They said that it would not count towards forgiveness. So that would push me into like March of 2027 or something like that. But now they took away the adjustment, and we don't even know if that's applicable. And now I've consolidated my loan into this new loan, which means that the interest is being calculated on this astronomical amount. and not the initial principal. It's one thing to accumulate interest on $25,000 versus accumulating interest on $42,000. So now I'm just seeing like hundreds and hundreds of dollars just added on, piled on every month. And I don't know what to do. Do I now try to go into a new payment plan? Do I just wait to see what happens? I just feel so like, but I tell you what I will do. I will trust in the Lord. I will wait on him. For scripture tells me to trust in the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my own understanding. Acknowledge him in all my ways and he will make my path straight. So I'm just going to keep trusting in him. I'm just going to keep trusting that God will make a way, some way, somehow, whether he touches the heart of Donald Trump so that we can keep that payment adjustment and account adjustment and get some of that time so that we can get closer to forgiveness. Or maybe there'll be a financial miracle like God did last time for me and I'll be able to just pay it off once for all. Either way, I'm leaving it in God's hands. And if you're like me and you're in this sort of similar situation, I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments. And I pray that you will trust in God and not let this make you feel like you can't breathe, because life is too short to allow these trifling student loans to steal your peace. I pray that God's peace will rule your heart, just like I'm praying that it will rule mine. Anyways, there is so much more about this situation in my book in terms of, me in LA, just pursuing acting, and don't look at my disgusting nails, pursuing acting and being haunted by these stupid student loans and going to Paris and studying film and living in LA and getting jaded and dating weird guys and eventually finding my way back into the arms of the one who loves me the most, my Lord, my Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ, who loves you too. And maybe you clicked on this video because of your student loans, but the Lord wanted you to watch this because he wants you to know that he is in it with you. Trust in him. Trust in him, just like I'm trusting in him. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this with a friend. God bless you. Bye-bye.